the world we're in tends to try to disprove spirit. You know, it tries to make people feel a helplessness and a hopelessness. And then, of course, that brings that despair and depression and a lack of desire to live. You know, people take their own lives because they're so sensitive, and they look at this world and say, well, you know what? There's something wrong with this picture, and they don't know what to do with it, because if they speak about it too much, they're either shunned, or if they speak about it too much, you know, they tend to look crazy, or they look depressed and clinical, and they are, and they're righteously depressed, because they're saying the emperor is naked. There's something wrong with this picture. So it's just a very difficult thing to juggle. But Christ teaches us, don't take it so seriously, meaning not to see it as something of a joke, even though it is a joke. He's saying, don't take it to heart that this world is the way it is. It doesn't mean don't do anything about it, or don't try to heal or step forward, but he is saying, you know, be careful on how you see these things, and not take them to heart, not be so devastated that the world isn't a better place. Even if you make this world a nicer place, Yogananda says, you better keep telling yourself, even if it's a wonderful life, don't forget to tell yourself, this is not my home. Even if things go well, do not get sucked into, oh, well, now that things are going well, I guess I'm going to, you know, be okay with this as being the best as it gets. This place could never even reflect a fraction of a fraction of a fraction, and so on. You get the point of what the real world looks like. The world that's seemingly now unseen. The world that people don't any longer believe in. You know, if you could imagine all the tensions gone, and the stresses of what to do, and lack and limitation and ailments, and if you imagine all that gone, that's just a first fraction of a step. Imagine that not only all the problems are gone, imagine that all of a sudden the angst and tension start to fall away, and something else starts to emerge. So you start to see a different world. You start to see colors, more beautiful colors. You don't see an extremes of weather. You feel different. You know, beings glow more. You start to see other dimensional realms with higher beings. You know, to be able to see, wow, you know, light beings, and sometimes even deceased loved ones. But as much as that's beautiful, that's like, you know, that's like first steps. I mean, beyond that, man, angels and archangels and so on. You know, there's another world waiting. I mean, Jesus describes it in A Course in Miracles so beautifully, but he only does it here and there because he doesn't want to overly tease people. But he's saying it's a beauty beyond your imagination, the world waiting. And some people go, oh, you mean the world when we die? And go, no, it's not heaven, and it's not just another dimension. It's actually still here. It's just not the one seen. So there's a dense layer, an layer, like an overlay. You guys might remember, those of you who are old like me, might remember overhead projectors, right? And there's a glass top, and then the projector shoots, you know, light through it, and it projects it up onto a screen. And they had the overhead slides, you know, so they would be sheets of plastic. So those overhead sheets, imagine having none on the screen, and you look at the screen, you look at the wall, you know, and you see pure light. Well, that's a poor depiction because it's just pure light. It doesn't make you go, whoa. But the concept of pure light, which in a sense you could say this is the better world that awaits us. And I don't mean awaits us upon death. I mean awaits us here as we learn to shift consciousness. The better world that awaits us is a world that essentially is like a blank screen. So when you see white upon the screen, because there's nothing on the glass, you think, well, it's blank, it's empty. No, it means infinite possibilities. So you put blue and green, and you put life on there, and things that are just so alive. You know, as soon as you see that, you start to just go, wow. You know, I was sitting outside for a little while a few minutes ago, and just kind of looking around, and I was just in awe, butterflies, and sometimes I film these things from my yard, front yard, backyard, whatever, and you just hear the chimes, and there's the butterflies, and I see these hummingbirds and these bees just concentrating on the pollen and the purple flowers around me and all that. That's all beautiful, and that is still just a very small fragment of what awaits us. Meaning it's that times a billion, and so on. But it's a beginning. To learn to start to see the love around us, the beauty around us. And if you don't have a beauty, and if you don't have the ability to see beautiful things, and I don't mean opulence, because that's the opposite polarity. There's the dry, the dead, the gray, and then there's the opposite, the opulence that makes you feel, I've been in homes and museum type places that you can't move. I mean, everything is just so gaudy or opulent. You can't just hang out and relax in such places. That's overly like the other extreme. It's not about how much stuff. It's what they represent, the beauty that they represent. So all of us have a world waiting for us. That world will not be made available to our eyes or perceptions while we hold any particular kinds of hatreds. Now, I announced a week or two ago on one of our shows somewhere here, about what's going to happen this month, a lot of planetary alignments and so on. And I love the people the skeptics. That's a nice word, so I'll be nice and try to not say anything too rude. But the skeptics who say, there's nothing to that sort of thing. And if you're, oh my God, I mean, it's like it's right on time, right on schedule. I didn't even mention that right in between these two eclipses is a Mercury retrograde. And I mean, my God, if you're not seeing these things, you are either, numb to them, or you just don't have any sensors at all to be able to see these things. It's so evident. Look at the quantity. I don't even know what's going on in the world per se. I catch a glimpse here and there, somebody says something, and I know there's some sort of political stuff again. And it's just hatred, people, it's the politicians that have lack of love, and then the people that lack love for the politicians, and it goes around and around. That's not going to reveal the real world. So, if you guys get caught in the hamster's wheel of dialogue and gossip and hate and worry. Oh my God, this is for sure. Man, this president's going to do this and ruin us, and this politician and this governor and whatever else. It's just not even worth getting caught up in. And I know that some of you might say, well, Michael's just very negligent. He's got his head in the clouds. He's not being responsible at all if he doesn't pay attention to politics and so on. You know what? If you're all stressed about politics, even just slightly worried about what might or might not happen politically, and you die tomorrow and I die tomorrow, one of us is already in paradise and one of us is not. So think about that if you want to criticize me for my lack of care. I'm telling you the same things Jesus has told you. There will always be suffering. There will always be tragedy on this planet because we made this planet too much of an ego-based planet. It's not meant to be that way, but it's the way we meant it to be. So this world will not change. The politics will not ease up, racism and so on. And I told you all that there's going to be a band of light across this country calling people to heal the extremes and dualities, such as, and I'm not the only one that spoke about this, mind you. I'm just saying that I did speak about it. And, the dualities such as racism and whoa, people are talking about that happening in the world. Dualities of every kind and genders and, whatever else. So if you folks are like me and you believe yourselves to be a spiritual person and you believe yourselves to be maybe more focused on spirituality, your interests, your studies, your concerns, you can't be a hypocrite and say you're into spirituality, but then, like some opposite of a superhero by day, this person is pretending to be spiritual, but by night, they're angry, politically based, and so on. You can't do that. You can't put on your spiritual suit pretending to be, but then your alter ego is just too egotistic. Guys, we got to start living this. And stuff does happen. Stuff will happen. If you think the things that happened in 9/11 were disconcerting, if you think there are wars and rumors of wars and struggles in this country and that country, if you think those are something, it's not going to get better. The ego and evils of the world are going to intensify to try to distract those of us who choose to be awake. And of course, it's going to win some battles, get you distracted. Our job, and I mean this, our job is to look at why we get distracted, what distracts us. You can say, I don't really care about war stuff, but the economy I care about. Then that's your weak link. And I'm not saying don't care about it. I'm saying if it upsets you, that's your weak link. So, practice looking at what buttons get pushed. If you end your life and you go to the other side and they interview you, kind of a post-earthly life interview, and all you've got to do is complain. That's the only report you bring back. Well, I wasn't more spiritual because of who was president and who was this and who was that. They're not going to hear any of that. They're going to just send you back with whatever you didn't like, multiplied by a few. Why would it be multiplied? Because that's bad karma? No, they're multiplying it for you so that you can see it more dramatically, so you can say, wow, this just isn't very cool. I want to either let this crush me or I'm going to just disperse it. And it's always the hope of spirit that you'll grow up and disperse it and say, not today, man. I'm not letting this stuff get me today. I don't think you should be concentrating on my thinking that you need to be perfect. I'm saying that we just need to try harder to not let stuff get to us so much. Stuff does get to us. When you say, I'm going to stop smoking, you'll never think about cigarettes more than those first hours and days, because it's not in your hand. You're not doing it. As soon as you starve the ego of something, it starts bitching about it. And by the way, somebody, when I sometimes use a curse word, it upsets somebody. I don't know. I think they should, go watch a Christian evangelist or something. They might be safer that way. But sometimes I do say those curse words, and I just say them because it's how I feel in the moment. But I do also respect you. Those of you who said, could you not use this word or that word? I don't know. I can't say yes or no to that. I'm also not claiming that it's Jesus channeling curse words through me. It's just, I am the channel. So whatever comes through me, I emphasize it this way or that way. Sometimes with cracking a joke and sometimes with a curse word, because there's a ridiculousness to this world that people don't quite get. So I will use words like that sound, almost irreverent. Not almost, they're irreverent. And they're meant to be irreverent because they are irreverent, because the world is stupid. The world is just an illusion. It's don't take it like it's your God. This isn't our home. This isn't our God. And I'm not saying give up on it. I'm saying we have to make this place into a happy dream. The nightmare of this world, because there's a nightmare and there's a happy dream. Nightmare, happy dream, next to each other. Equal opportunity between our ability to choose. Nightmare, happy dream. Heaven is up here. It's not down below the veil that crosses here. There's just this duality while we're out of heaven, a duality. And we have to choose which one we're going to serve, which one we're going to, give attention to. And so this one is absurd. It's all absurd because only heaven is real. But even on the earth plane, even in the third dimensional universe, to allow the nightmare to be our God, to allow the nightmare, foolish people acting foolishly, small people with small minds to upset us. I mean, if you really see, when you criticize people like political figures or religious figures, if you really see how foolish they are and you say, oh, that person's such a jerk, they're so this and they're so and narcissistic, all the names that people throw around with these leaders, if you really knew that, you would do like me and just kind of call it ridiculous. You wouldn't get actually personal about it. You wouldn't say it as though you are angry at the person for being the way they are. It's just stupid, meaning it's just simple. It's ridiculous. It's not worth our value. God is the only thing we need to value. And I don't see God when I'm judging this person or that person. So my job is to forgive. And I know we've all heard those words, but it's true. It's all about forgiveness. There's really not much else we're on the planet for but to forgive. Oh, no. I thought I was here because I'm supposed to do this or that or the other. I'm supposed to start a nonprofit organization, or I'm supposed to have babies and grandbabies. I know how rude I sound when I say these things, but I swear to you, nobody on the higher dimensions cares about you having children or grandchildren or nonprofit organizations or anything else you think, or playing checkers or being a master at playing chess or being a great cook. They care only about forgiveness, because if you know how to forgive, then you create bliss for all beings. When we start to think we're here to have, let's say, babies or to start a new business. I'm not saying don't have babies and don't start a new business. I'm saying when we think that that's our main function, it's another way of escaping our ultimate function. Because you can have, and people on earth have, you can live on earth 1,000 times and you will have children potentially 900 and something of those times, and grandchildren 800 and something of those times, right? So it happens. You've had children in other lifetimes. Did it send you home instantly to heaven where never again would you incarnate just by having children or grandchildren? No is the answer. No. Those things do not help us. How many books you read do not help us. Nothing helps. Even if you watch this show that I'm doing right now, and let's say you watch it, you listen to it, and you go, this guy's pretty cool, and then you don't apply any of it, then it's completely worthless. Not this program, not a book. Nothing is worth anything unless it changes us. The value of you, Jesus says in some parts of A Course in Miracles, it was edited out of the Course, but it's in there in the unedited portions. But Jesus talks about children. Having children, for example. Again, please understand, I'm not dissing that. This just happens to be the topic I'm on right this second. He says, again, for example, to have children, you're going to have sex. And he says, people just don't even understand the concept of sex. But from spiritual standpoint, go ahead and have sex. And then sex could result in children. And he says, the only thing Spirit really thinks about when it comes to people having sex and children is this. If they have sex and then they have children, as far as Spirit's concerned, the only value of you having children is that you now have more beings to work on your crap with. That's it. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine getting that as a congratulations on your new baby? Here comes a card from heaven, from Jesus, It comes through God X or whatever in the mail. So it shows up at your post office, your mailbox or whatever, and you get this card from God, Jesus or whatever. Congratulations on the new baby. Like you get one of those from a friend. Oh, but the one that would come from heaven would be congratulations. Now, get prepared. You'll have another being to work on with which to work on issues. I mean, what a bizarre perspective. But it's true, because he's saying healing relations brings you home. It's the only thing that brings you home. Not because the relations are better or worse or judged one way or the other. It's because we live our stuff out in our relationships. Now, relationships with people, yes. But believe it or not, our relationships with all things. There's a pillow sitting here next to me. I have a relationship with it. How so? Well, let's say I lean on the pillow and I like it for back comfort. One day the pillow starts getting worn enough and it starts to get squashed and no longer is back support. You understand? It's now let me down. I need to now trade it in for a new couch. You see, you have a relationship with everything. Your car lets you down, you need to trade it in. Your pillow lets you down, trade it in. Your wife, husband, partner, whatever it is. We trade these things in. That's why I've said, even when you have to let something go, refuse to hate it. Look at what you can learn from it and acknowledge that there's a light in it, deep in it, that is in the image of God. If you can pull that off, then you've done the right thing. It's when you try to end relationships or with objects or anything with a neutrality, it doesn't work. With like an I don't care or an anger or anything else. It can only be done successfully if we do it responsibly. Nothing can be done right if it's not responsible. So we have to be willing to look at our part. So a nation divided, the nation's been divided before. Well, what about troubled, news of world and issues and war? We've had them before. We have to heal stuff. It doesn't matter if there's a war or not. We're still going to have the same issues, which is to heal. If we have war, we're not going to have other people in other countries to now think about healing our issues with. All it does is bring up more stuff for us to heal. If we were completely healed, there would be no famines, no economy issues, economic issues. There would be no war. We would have none of that. People are going to recognize at some point that in our lifetime, there's 7 billion people on our planet, something like that, that number. In our lifetime alone, a fourth of those, maybe a third of those, have popped up. Just in our lifetime. Doesn't that confuse anybody? Doesn't that bring up anything of concern? We have overpopulation. And what does it mean, overpopulation? Overpopulation in the sense that that's stressing the ecosystem. Water, food, all of this is going to be an issue. And then we start synthetically creating foods so that we don't have that issue, but that's fake. See, you can't synthetically create things and think everything's okay. Everything's got to be looked at in the heart and brought to forgiveness. So we all have our variations of what we think needs to happen on this planet. Mine may not be the right ones for you, but we are indeed dealing with some issues on this planet, folks. And they will never go away without forgiveness. They cannot and they will not. You can create a limit on population, that will not fix it, because we still had issues when we had only 4 billion people on the planet. So having 7 billion people now won't make it better or worse, because we still have issues. Forgiveness is the only way. I know that there are particular people in your life, in all of our lives, that have been, emphasized as the ones that push buttons and have been our harbingers of pain, the ones that have been our, greatest nemesises. But what are you doing with them? If you can forgive and work on forgiving with those individuals, it should be much easier to work on the lesser strained people in your life. But you might take the opposite, and that's fine too. Let me work on the easier ones and work up to the greater issues. Do something though. Do not hide behind things. Do not hide behind false spirituality. You're not spiritual if you're not a forgiving person. It doesn't matter, what colors you wear or whatever. Are you practicing forgiveness? So we all have a job to do, a responsibility to live up to, and it's to practice forgiveness. And I've talked about that many times, so I hope I'm not being too redundant. But to kind of bring this full circle, there's a world we keep wanting to see and longing to see. When you look deep down at the stuff in the world that bothers you, instead of just using your head and say, here's why it bothers me, because all men are this way or women are that way or whatever, politicians and okay, great. How are you feeling about that? Try looking deeper inside. And I think that you're going to find that when a politician angers you, a religious figure angers you, a friend, a partner angers you, just pause long enough to ask yourself, besides what they did that angered you, ask what it is they didn't do. What did they not live up to? And you'll find yourself going, the politician didn't do what he said he was going to do. That's why you're mad. The politician's making me feel this way or that way. Fine. which makes you feel, well, look for what it's not making you feel. He's making me feel like I'm more stressed about my insurance. I don't have health insurance or whatever the issue could be. It's, flavor of the month. These issues change every day. But it's my health insurance. So you're not mad that they're straining your chance for health insurance. It's that you don't have health insurance. It's what they're not giving you that's upsetting. Everybody thinks it's what people do to us. It's also and more often founded on what they're not doing. You're not making me feel safe, so I'm mad that you're starting a war in this world. You're not making me feel spiritual enough, so I'm mad that you're making me feel unforgiving. You see, they're doing things seemingly on this planet. And we're not pretending that they're not doing them. Let others do as they may. But as for me and mine, we will serve the living God. Biblical scripture. It's like, let them do as they may. They're going to do what they're going to do. When Judas is going to, at the Last Supper, betray Jesus. Now think about family members that betray you or, partners. When Jesus, it's kind of amazing. Imagine you in a moment being betrayed by somebody. Your partner cheated on you, let's say. Or a business associate stole money from you and you struggled because of that. And some of the stories I've heard, man. But pause for a minute and imagine if you would have had, I'm not saying compare yourself so that you feel lesser than, but just imagine, here's what Jesus did. Here's how he dealt with that. Judas is about to go and betray him. And, Jesus is kind of like, since you're going to do this, why don't we just get it over with, Judas? That thing you've been plotting? Judas is like, what? You know about that? Yes, I know. Haven't you figured out I'm at least a little psychic here? I know what you're going to do. Why don't you just go get it over with? And Judas is bewildered. And even Judas was fooling himself, sadly. He wasn't just a bad guy. He was also deluding himself. So he was a weak guy too. He was deluding himself into thinking, it sounds like Jesus wants me to do this. And if he wants me to do this, it must be because Jesus has the same idea I have, which is that if I turn him in, he'll go before the courts. The courts will acknowledge him as being the Messiah, and then all of Israel would be raised up as a race and as a power, and they would kick the Romans out, which is like conquering evil as a metaphor. So Judas is kind of deluding himself into thinking that's what Jesus wanted. So he's like, wow, this is great. And only Jesus and I know this is the real thing we're up to. So he goes and betrays him. Judas was heartbroken. He was. He didn't hang himself for any reason other than the fact that he was heartbroken when he realized, oh my God, what have I done? I thought that something good was going to come from this, meaning good in the third dimension, and it isn't. See, now the first mistake, I want it when I want it. So sadly, he's let down, but he also realizes, I've been used. You guys used me and tricked me, but he also tricked himself. So we need to not just look at what people have done to us, but what we've done to ourselves. And the more often and the better we get at looking at our part in these kinds of strange dances that we dance, it really behooves us to be able to say, wait a second, what part have I played or might I have played in this? It's a very difficult thing to explain just in seconds here or minutes here, but it is essential. You will never ascend to higher consciousness. You'll never go to fifth dimensional realities and all the other cool things people are waiting for. It'll never happen without responsibility. You will never reach higher states of consciousness without first taking responsibility for the lower states of consciousness. It sounds like it's not true, like it cannot be, that most of us think taking responsibility makes me feel terrible and so on. It's the only way to fly, baby. To be able to say, wow, I just a quick personal thing. I just flew unexpectedly. You know, I didn't tell anybody, but I just went a couple days ago, Monday. I flew, arrived Monday night, was there Tuesday, and came home Wednesday. So I was there really 48 hours maybe. But I flew to Southern California because I heard my mom's dying. And, and I thought, I know that, the truth and respect the illusion. I know the reality is, if a person passes away, they know that you send them love and care and all that, and appreciation. But this is really an earthly mom. It's not like, I don't see it as anything too beyond that. And as much as she was somewhat neutral and sometimes kind to me when I was little, I think probably till I was 6 or so, she was actually, from what I recall and feel, quite nice to me. But it just shifted, man, and the hatred kind of overwhelmed. But that's kind of the style. That's the background for her. That's the upbringing for her. That's just the style. But, and I could tell you, and she did this and they did this, and you could go, oh, poor thing. And it's true. It's a bummer that people treat each other that way. But I have to be able to go, what is my part in that potentially? What is my part does not mean what kind of a horrible jerk was I to deserve such and such. That's not what it means. Try to put a positive spin to it. What positive might there have been if I played a part in this at all? It's going to seem like a negative, and that's going to scare you. But try it. I could easily say, I would not be doing the work I do if I would have been the way my other siblings and such were, which is real caught up in this whole family kind of a thing. So they're still doing the family thing and are, kind of bummed and kind of have some great qualities, but some challenging ones. So there's not a lot of peace, I think, maybe, for some of these folks. But anyway, I did. I flew there, didn't tell her I'm coming, because with that family, a lot of negative things could happen if they know I'm coming to town. So I just show up. Because it is metaphorically for you and me sometimes. Pre-warning such things, you end up just with more trouble, crucifixions as it were. So it's better just to kind of swoop in there, kind of like Jesus appearing after the crucifixion, right? He just appears behind doors, closed doors, just shows up. Hey guys, they're like, well, why didn't you call first? And Jesus is like, it's better this way, trust me. So it's kind of like that. So I just showed up, and for a moment I was just taken aback because of how she looks now. I don't remember her looking like this physically, energetically, and so on. So I had a moment of, wow, almost choked up for a split second, because you see the change. So whether people look ill or act ill to you, you still have the same job. Beloved Father, Mother, God, before me, I see someone that looks aged or sick or sickly or near death or whatever it is, or just mean. I have a job to do. It's not, dear Jesus, give me the armor of the Lord and let's conquer these jerks who are mean to us. Let us overthrow them all. That's not how this is done. Nor is it, oh, look how sick that person is. Dear God, please take care of them. You just told God that the person is less than holy. You've just given a negative overview of the person, which now kind of keeps that imprint. If you really want to help them, take responsibility. Oh my God, I just saw this person as frail, sickly, and they're not. They just look that way. I just noticed this person's being rude, but they're not. They just appear that way. Who do they appear that way to? God? No. Angels? No. Jesus? No. Who? Me. We learn to say, good one. It was a trick. It was a little bit of a test to make me doubt your holiness. And I have to take a moment and look, because I'm seeing this woman as frail and aged. Now this is hard to explain, so bear with me. It's not just, I surrender my image of her to you, God, and let me see her holy, which is the perfect thing to do and say. But before I do that, I also take a second to go, why does she look that way to me? And what does that bring up? I feel bad for her, I feel sorry for her, and she looks sickly and so on. Let me explain something, because she looks, however old she is, I have no idea, and I don't mean to sound insensitive, but she's old, whatever it is, the age. She's older now, but it's not her age. What I'm seeing in this sickly woman and her physical stature and the appearance and the vibe, even her voice is fading away like an older person. All of it is symbolic of, in a sense, how she appeared to me all my life. Because in some ways she was, in my opinion, she seemed sick to me in her behavior. She's not a cruel psycho mom like some people have had, and I'm sorry, if you've dealt with that. Some of you have had a better mom, some of you have had a worse, some of you a better dad, some of you worse, some better siblings, some worse. We all have variables on that. What I'm saying is, when we see someone is sick, it's a test, but what they're doing, even the mean people in the world, what they're doing is taking not just your inner hurt, hate, and whatever it happens to be, but the world's. And they're squeezing it through their being and showing it to you. I am hatred, and then they treat you mean. It's not just the hatred you have to heal and the hatred they have to heal, it's global hatred. So when you have a test, it's not just with one person. It's all humanity reflecting through one person. In a way you could say, like Judas, people are being used to reflect to us the lessons of ourselves and of all humanity. So my mom looking that way is the sickliness that my whole family would have appeared to me, the way they treated me, the way they were all those years. But can you catch that and see it for what it really is and say goodbye to it? Because all it is a test. And I felt really good about that. Whether it's when my dad passed away or whomever, other family members. I mean, almost everybody that I've ever known, family-wise, is deceased now. And most of them I wasn't even around and never even knew about it. I hear it after the fact. It's not them, it's what they represent to us that we're most supposed to be thinking about. People will pass away. You can have a child pass away. And that just seems so out of sorts with nature. Like, how did they die before me? It doesn't matter whether they died before you. That's just part of the illusion. They still are bringing certain things up. And if you lost an innocent, sweet baby child, that is horrible. Probably the most horrible of all the things, when it's a tiny child, didn't even have a chance to walk yet. How could that not be a horrible experience? But it's the same from spiritual view. It's the same as all of them. What does it symbolize to you? When you are, somebody was sharing with me today how they were advocating and fighting to try to help an adolescent friend of theirs or whatever. It quickly tells us that it's not the adolescent alone that you're trying to help, but there's parts of your own lost adolescence that you were trying to fix. The good news is, you are helping them and trying to help them. The bad news is we have to be careful not to miss what's really happening, that we're trying to help ourselves too. I don't mean you're blinded by something. I mean you could be. You need to see when you're helping others. It's often, all too often, it's a part of yourself you're wanting to help. When you're mourning the loss of a loved one or their sickliness or whatever it happens to be, it's what they're symbolizing that you most need to pay attention to. So I didn't, for a split second, the physical caught my attention. But I caught on pretty quickly. There's so much more here, which is more emotional than the physical piece, because all the other layers, man, when they start downloading and you realize you're watching this person who can barely talk now, who used to say some of the rudest things to you, but now they can't talk, and it can show you like, wow, some of the feelings come back, or whatever else you might have experienced with them, a partner, and a divorce. It's all the same. Death, divorce, loss, change, they're all the same. And our job is to look at what it's bringing up. So whether you're looking at the political environment or other global things, I'll try to occasionally share with you guys insights and predictions about things. But I kind of got out of that business for the most part years ago. And I exited that business, and one of my closing statements was this: it's the worst career in the world to be a prophet of sorts, because you're in a lose-lose business. If what you predict, a negative that's going to happen, happens, it does not feel good at all. But what if you warn people and say, guys, if we can just do this, 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 it'll change it? Then they start to think you're full of crap and you're deceiving and you weren't accurate. So if you're wrong, you lose, and if you're right, you lose. It's just a terrible business to get into. And that's just putting it in my kind of silly vernacular or framing to it. But I'll try to give some insights and so forth. But maybe in my online Christ course that's coming up, maybe I'll share more with those folks, because they will have gone through months of weeks and weeks of preparation to kind of grow into understanding these things. But stuff's going to happen in this world, and it's going to intensify. There'll be times when things level off, but it's going to intensify. Am I telling you all to go and buy a bunker somewhere and store up your water, close the lid, and just live there the rest of your life? No, because you'll be miserable. When people said to me, Michael, there's a good chance that the oceans on the shorelines of the east and west coast, east and or west coast, could alter and great flooding. Should I move to higher ground? I'm like, I don't know. Would you be happy living in Nebraska? Because I'd rather, or wherever, Michigan or wherever, I'd rather die with the tidal wave on the West Coast than to live in some states, which I will not name, in the central areas of the country. It's just like, kill me now. Where would you be happy? Be where you reflect happiness. Where you feel guided to go. Don't move to the top of a mountain to survive. Your survival, like having children or grandchildren, is not what's important. It's your consciousness is what's important. Have children with blissful consciousness and teach them bliss. Have grandchildren, blissful consciousness, and teach them bliss. Live on the coast, live on the highlands of any place, as long as you can do so blissfully. I live in the desert now. If you know Michael Mirdad, if you know anything about me, if you would have interviewed me hours before I ever even thought of coming here, there would have been no way. Michael, desert? No. And yet I'm here and I'm blissed out being here. Oh, that's because it's Sedona. No, it's because I create a blissful environment where I am. Not because I'm special. We're all supposed to be doing this. So please watch your choices. Be very responsible as much as possible. And I only pass over these things here and there when I do these talks. I'm sorry that I can't go into really vivid technicolor detail, about exercises of how to and specifics about all the prophecies. It's not the place for that. You can watch. And I only a week or two ago, I started emphasizing this. Watch the catalog that we've got on DVDs, guys. There's a lot of absolutely for free YouTube videos and, live things made available. The Sunday services for Unity of Sedona, these things are free. There must be 100 of them by now. They're all for free. So check them out. If you can make donations, fantastic. We greatly appreciate it. It's what really has most made us be able to afford doing this work. So thank you. We put it to good use. We really do. But the videos that are on DVDs, the DVDs are sets. You can watch individual ones or sets. If you buy a case, it's a set. Or you can watch individual ones. But when you watch them, they're not passing comments. They're not 30 minutes. They're 45 minutes, sometimes an hour on a topic. So, and really focusing on that topic. So they're really more intensive. And if you were looking for that kind of material from me, please try those out. There's some really deep ones on spirit versus matter, or the mind and soul consciousness, and all kinds of higher things. There's some very deep practical ones on prosperity development. Just quite a variety. The after-death experience. Just everything imaginable. Dreams, lucid dreaming. Just all kinds of things. Even the one called Holy Days is not holidays per se. It's holy days. It's how to better understand the symbolism of different holidays or equinoxes or whatever. They're not on holidays per se. It's more the deeper understanding of these holidays, which are about our awakenings. So they're not about holidays, they're about our awakenings. So check out these different sources for these things. And if ever you want me to talk about a specific topic, just take a moment, send in a message, and I'll do what I can to get to those. What I've shared today, I hope made sense. Primarily, there's a world that we cannot see. And it's not yet perfect heaven, but there is a blissful world still while on earth that we can see. And some of us are waiting for a president or a spiritual leader, religious leader, to make it happen. And guys, I guarantee you that is not the way it's going to happen. People, the human race is addicted to learning the hard way rather than the easy way. So they want to be beat up before they can be humbled. It's the silliest thing in the world. But it is a dysfunction that comes from the human ego, something we're addicted to listening to as our guide. So we have to neutralize it, not pretend we're not hearing it. We have to heal it by saying, I can see clearly that the investment I have put into politicians, government, religion, whatever, my parents, whomever, is not working. Jesus says in A Course in Miracles, before we can talk about the good stuff, you must first own what you have tried did not work and is not working. Okay, that includes medicine, the world of medicine. I want them to fix me, they need to. No, I'm sorry. Anything in this planet that can give a person power or money is usually corrupted. So it's not going to give you anything. So stop looking for the love in all the wrong places. And don't hate the things that failed to give it to you. Don't hate them, because that's what's happening. I'm angry at so-and-so. What you really mean to say is, damn them for not giving me what I wanted. But what you wanted was just to be placated. You wanted to be given a little holiday to make yourself think you were okay. The boss that overlooked you when it was time for giving raises. He's a jerk and he's this, and everybody at work agrees. That doesn't make it true. What's true is, first and foremost, you. Talk about you, not the boss. What happened? They didn't give me a raise. And why does that upset you? And look inside. It makes me feel lesser. It makes me feel overlooked. It makes me feel unheard. There you go. So now I'm not even having to use the word boss, am I? I feel overlooked and unseen and so on. And I get angry and hurt. I get hurt and then angry when I'm not seen for my talents. Okay, good. Now that you see that you're angry, that you're upset, are you willing to see that that's a pattern? Yes. Are you willing to then release the pattern? Because it's not making you happy, not to not get it, nor to keep waiting for it. It's not working. It's not happening. So let everybody off the hook. Instead of curse everyone, let them all off the hook. Mom, dad, bosses, politicians, don't hate them, because sometimes they're ignorant to how ridiculous they are, and sometimes they're seemingly thriving on how ridiculous they are. But even if you're upset with who you have in office, there were not a lot of other better options. Every politician's going to be bringing up some issues for everybody. So we might as well just let them all off the hook and work on our own stuff. I hope this has made sense. And I know that racism stuff too is a major charge. Just like looking at my mother or your father or whomever. People can look like they have a charge. And racism is ridiculous. But be careful. Don't give it a whole lot of power. Instead of we have to fight for this, you don't. Start seeing the love in everyone, black or white, red or brown, yellow or whatever. Learn to see beyond the colors instead of fighting for the colors. Learn to be the one that doesn't even notice it. Be like a child who doesn't even notice that the other children have a different color. That, children, before they speak, they don't even realize they have a different language. That's kind of cool. Just find commonality. Be the one in the room that doesn't buy into the picket signs of hatred that emanate in our aura when we start gossiping and so on. And I'll tell you, keep doing that and let the world keep doing that, all the hatred, and all it's going to do is attract a greater tragedy to shake everybody up. because something is going to wake everyone up. It is time. In our lifetime, it's time that these things are going to happen. The Hopi have told this. Great psychics and clairvoyants and prophets of old have said this. This is the time. And you can say, what a bummer. No, it is a bummer, but don't get caught up in that. We're the generation that's going to make the transition to a new world. Ours and the following generation are the transitional generation. So let's do what we can to be the change we'd like to see in the world. Okay? I pray this has made good sense, and I appreciate your time and your patience and your dedication to your path at whatever amount that is. Blessings to you, and I send you lots of love and freedom as a soul. And try to join us Sunday. We're going to have an incredible service. I know that because I don't know what I'm going to say yet, but I can usually feel waves of things, and I feel some really, really amazing things because of the changes going on in the world and so on. So join us if you can. Be the change you'd like to see in the world. It's a quote from Gandhi, not Michael. Peace be with you. Bye-bye.